Despite today's modern age, there are still many places on our planet that we almost know nothing about. Places that people don't care to go. Here are the top 15 most unexplored places on Earth. Number 15. North Sentinel Island. While most of the world's tribes have been contacted in some way, North Sentinel Island remains nearly untouched by anyone but the island's indigenous people. That's because ever since explorers first tried to interact with the islanders back in 1867, they have generally been very hostile, with some incidents even going so far as to lead to the deaths of those involved. Therefore, in order to protect the people on both sides, India passed the Anandam and Nicobar Islands Protection of Aboriginal Tribes Act in 1956, which has effectively banned anyone from visiting the island without express government permission. In order to enforce this, the Indian Navy patrols the island's waters and can prosecute anyone who decides to go against this ban. As a result, despite the island likely having a lot to offer, it has remained untouched and unexplored by Westerners for centuries. Number 14. Muchu Chish. Mountains are anything but easy pickings for adventurers, and Muchu Chish is certainly not an exception. That's because despite the fact that it has some competition from other larger slopes, it currently holds the title as the tallest unclimbed mountain in the world. It's perfectly legal to climb. Now, the primary reason behind this is that Muchu Chish is both difficult to access and located in a remote area, meaning that very few have even attempted to climb the mountain. To make matters worse, at only 7,453 meters tall, it's significantly shorter than some of its contemporaries, making it difficult for many explorers to justify climbing it when there are larger yet easier to climb slopes nearby. And while the 3-member Czech expedition announced that they would try to climb the mountain in August of 2020, it remains to be determined if Muchu Chish will remain unexplored or become truly charted territory for much longer. Number 13. Papua New Guinea. While Papua New Guinea may be an island nation of about 9 million people, it turns out that much of the country is still unexplored by all but the country's indigenous groups. That's because the island is full of dense rainforests and massive mountains that make it nearly impossible to traverse, with this reality being aided by the fact that the island's near complete lack of infrastructure and extreme lack of safety in urban areas makes it less than an ideal place for researchers to set up shop. Regardless, when researchers do explore the island, they almost always make some sort of discovery, as between 1998 and 2008 alone, there were a total of 1,060 new species found on New Guinea and its surrounding islands. As a result, while the country may not be in the best of shape, it is certainly somewhere worth visiting if you'd like to see some truly impressive flora and fauna. Number 12. Singideba Maraha. In short, Singideba Maraha is easily one of the strangest sights in the world. Located in the Malaki region of northwestern Madagascar, it's a 1,520 square kilometer plateau of karstic rocks, which were created thanks to rainwater eroding away at already existing limestone deposits. This is made a forest of dense and tall stones that are nearly impossible to traverse, making it extremely hard for researchers to survey the area. When you then further consider that Singideba Maraha is an area that is home to thousands of endemic species that cannot be found anywhere else in the world, it's clear that it's a shame that scientists are having a hard time finding them all. Number 11. Devon Island. There are many areas on our planet that are uninhabited, but Devon Island stands apart for being the largest uninhabited island in the world. Located in Canada's far north, Devon Island has been called Mars on Earth by many researchers, as its desert setting and harsh climate is very similar to the conditions on Mars. As a result, the island's barren terrain, freezing temperatures, isolation, and remoteness have made it a prime spot for NASA researchers to test how a settlement on Mars could potentially function, with a small permanent research station being present on Devon Island in order to carry out various experiments. However, considering that the island is practically located in the middle of nowhere, no matter how much it looks like Mars, we don't expect too many people to come explore the island anytime soon. Number 10. Gangkhar Pensum, Bhutan. Although Gangkhar Pensum is surrounded by a much larger Himalayan cousin such as Mount Everest and K2, it holds the distinction of being the world's highest unclimbed mountain. Now, although its location is somewhat disputed, so disputed in fact that the first British expedition to the mountain in 1922 couldn't even find it, today it's generally agreed upon that it's located entirely within the country of Bhutan. Now, the measurements seem to indicate that its peak is located at an elevation of 7,570 meters, ranking it as the 40th largest mountain in the world. And while it is likely not an extremely hard climb ever since 1994, the climbing of mountains in Bhutan that are higher than 6,000 meters has been prohibited out of respect for local spiritual beliefs, as it's thought that the deities live atop of high mountains such as Gangkhar Pensum. As a result, unless those regulations change, it will likely retain its title as an unexplored wonder for years to come. Number 9. The Marianas Trench. While the world's oceans are a lot less charted than many would imagine, the Marianas Trench stands apart for perhaps being one of the most mysterious areas out there. That's because its maximum depth of about 10,984 meters makes it the deepest trench in the world, with it being so deep that if Mount Everest were to be dropped inside of it, its peak would still be 2 kilometers underwater. As a result, the trench experiences extremely heavy pressure, making exploratory dives down to the bottom of it near impossible. However, despite the challenges, a total of 4 manned and 3 unmanned descents have been achieved, with the first manned descent made by the Swiss-designed, Italian-built, and United States Navy-owned submarine Trieste by oceanographers Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard in 1960, and the first unmanned descent being made by a remotely operated underwater vehicle known as the Kaiko in 1996. As a result, to date, we've been able to get a very preliminary understanding on the deep-sea creatures and rare minerals located within the trench. We are constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. Surtsey Island. While most islands on Earth have been around for millions, if not billions of years, Surtsey Island stands apart for being younger than some of the people watching this video. That's because Surtsey, which is located off the southern coast of Iceland, only came to be after an underwater volcanic eruption that occurred 130 meters below sea level began to form it in November of 1963. From there, it grew to a maximum size of 2.7 square kilometers, with the surface area now being closer to 1.3 square kilometers thanks to erosion. Now, while such a small island theoretically shouldn't all be that hard to explore, the Icelandic government has made it sure that it's near impossible to enter it by making it strictly off-limits to the public, with only one small research station and the base of an unconstructed lighthouse being present to this day. As a result of these protections, the island has been able to thrive naturally and has organically developed its own ecosystem consisting of plants, birds, insects, and seals. As a result, despite it being the subject of a lot of research, it has technically been unexplored by humans for the entirety of its existence. Number 7. The Northern Forest Complex, Myanmar. While many additions to this list are unexplored due to their physical geography, Myanmar's Northern Forest Complex is largely unexplored for political reasons. That's because the country has been going through the longest civil war in history, as the conflict began in 1948 when Myanmar first became independent, and is to an extent still raging to this day. As a result, the Northern Forest Complex, which is located in the extreme north of the country along the border with India and China, is an approximately 31,000 square kilometer tract of land that has remained almost completely uninhabited. Now, it is home to a host of interesting creatures such as tigers, bears, elephants, and hundreds of bird species. And as such, the scientific community has been eyeing the region for years. However, until the political situation becomes a little more stable and the government recognizes the need to allow research in these areas, it is likely that they will continue to be unable to explore it for the foreseeable future. Number 6. The Southern Namib Desert, Namibia. While the Sahara may take the top spot for being the most well-known desert in Africa, the Southern Namib stands apart for being one of the oldest. Having been around for upwards of 80 million years, the Namib Desert stretches for about 2,000 kilometers between the countries of Angola, Namibia, and South Africa. And due to the near-complete lack of vegetation, it is mostly uninhabited. However, the Southern Namib Desert, which has been described as largely unexplored by the World Wildlife Fund, stands apart due to it consisting of a vast dune sea with some of the tallest and most spectacular dunes in the world, with said dunes ranging in color from pink to vivid orange and often measuring in and over 300 meters high. As such, despite the fact that the complexity and regularity of the patterns in its dune sea are stunning, they remain poorly understood to this day, with more exploration and research necessary in order to truly understand them. But best of all, due to the desert having the further distinction of having many endemic species due to its age, the area really does have the potential to be a researcher's paradise. Number 5. Vale do Javari, Brazil. Although Brazil may be the land that was conquered long ago by the Portuguese, there are some areas of the country that are so remote that almost no one outside of the region's indigenous communities have ever set foot inside them. The largest of these is Vale do Javari, which is near a forested region that is located in the northwest corner of the country near the borders with Bolivia and Peru. Encompassing an area of about 85,000 square kilometers, the region is larger than the country of Austria and is home to approximately 3,000 indigenous people. Now, the region stands apart for having the greatest concentration of isolated groups in the world, with the Brazilian government going so far as to forbid outsiders from entering this area. And contrary to what you may think, this mandate is very easy to enforce, as the area is not only extremely remote, but also inaccessible by nearly all forms of transportation. In particular, the region does not experience a dry season, so the rise of the Amazon River and the likely possibility of floods make the place a dangerous area for any kind of exploration, and an absolutely unsuitable area for any kind of permanent habitation. The area is also home to many dangerous animals, as the swamp-like nature of the region makes it a breeding ground for alligators and mosquitoes. When you then further consider that any attempts to contact the indigenous tribes in the region have frequently been met with violence, it shouldn't have come as a surprise that the nomadic indigenous groups located in the Vale do Javari have been left largely undisturbed for most of their existence. Number 4. Son Doong Cave, Vietnam. Although the entire surface area of the Earth has already been mapped by satellites, the same does not hold true for our planet's underground grottos. As such, a Vietnamese logger by the name of Hoc Con made an amazing discovery when he first discovered the Son Doong Cave while searching for aloe in 1991. But it wasn't until 2009 that the area was properly surveyed by British and Vietnamese authorities. Now, the reason why it is so spectacular is because it holds the distinction of being the world's largest natural cave, having been formed out of limestone between 2 to 5 million years ago. In fact, due to it coming in at a height of about 200 meters, a width of about 150 meters, and a length of about 9 kilometers, this cavern is so large that it can fit an entire New York City block inside of it, including its skyscrapers. As such, it should come as no surprise this cave is full of geological wonders, as it has stalagmites that often reach lengths of 70 meters and a 90-meter calcite barrier that has been coined as the Great Wall of Vietnam. Yet what really makes Son Doong spectacular are the jungles found within its depths. You see, the cave is so large that it has its very own contained ecosystem, and due to millions of years of secluded evolution, it has its own endemic plants, monkeys, flying foxes, frogs, insects, and hares that are found nowhere else in the world. As a result, this cave is one of the most biologically unique places in the world. Therefore, it should also come as no surprise that there's still a lot left to explore in the cave. After all, it wasn't until mid-2019 that researchers found a 1.6 million cubic meter underground river, and to this day more species and more outcroppings of the cave are still being discovered. Best of all, if you'd like to take a glimpse, you can sign up to be one of the just 1,000 people per year permitted to enter. However, at a price of $3,000 for just one ticket, it certainly will set you back quite a bit. Number 3. Lake Vostok, Antarctica. Typically speaking, a lake is located above ground, but Lake Vostok, which is located in Antarctica, stands apart due to it being the world's largest subglacial lake. This means that although it's located underneath glacial ice, the water in the lake is actually liquid. However, this water isn't like your typical H2O. That's because the ice that covers it has kept it untouched for the past 15 million years, meaning in that time frame the lake itself has never received light and has never been in contact with the atmosphere. Yet despite this seclusion, it seems that there may be microbial life inside the lake, even though of the high pressure, the constant cold, low nutrient input, potentially high oxygen concentration, and absence of sunlight all make for extremely harsh living conditions. Now, the fact that the lake is subglacial is what has essentially caused it to remain unexplored. You see, despite that fact that it was first discovered back in the late 1950s or early 1960s by Russian Antarctic research team, it has been difficult to actually test the water underneath the glacier, as it's located about 4,000 meters under the surface of the ice. To make matters worse, there's a lot of controversy as to whether it's environmentally ethical to drill into the lake, as not only could this jeopardize its untouched position, but the antifreeze that would have to be used to drill all the way down would undoubtedly contaminate the water and make any research findings from the water sample takes inconclusive. As a result, despite the interest certainly being there to explore Lake Vostok further, it will likely remain unexplored for the foreseeable future. Number 2. The Darien Gap, Panama, Colombia. As far as unexplored places go, few are as infamous as the Darien Gap, found between Panama and Colombia. It's largely a watershed, forest, and mountain area that's about 106 kilometers long and 80 kilometers wide, and it has gained notoriety not only for being largely unexplored, but more importantly for being the buffer that makes it impossible for the Pan-American Highway to truly connect all of the Americas. As a result, it's been the bane of travelers trying to complete this journey. They must pay to have their car transported via shipping container across the Gulf of Darien, while they take a plane between Panama and Colombia. Due to this often costing upwards of $10,000 even if a shipping container is shared, it surely has made this trip a lot less feasible for the average road tripper. However, that doesn't mean that attempts to traverse the gap haven't been made. You see, in 1971, both Panama and Colombia tried to continue building the road through the gap with the help of U.S. funds. However, due to environmentalists protesting that this would destroy the area's biodiversity, the plans were halted in 1974. And while some other attempts have been made to resurrect the idea, many locals have continued to oppose development because this would also lead to an increase in transmission of diseases across borders and likely lead to the destruction of many local indigenous cultures. As a result, governments and surveyors have left the area alone for the past few decades. Yet, if you are hell-bent on traversing the gap, it is possible to do so using an off-road vehicle. However, this is a lot more difficult than you might imagine, as it requires cutting down swaths of vegetation and often takes upwards of 2 to 3 years to complete. And while the occasional person has made headlines by walking through it or using a motorcycle to drive across, considering that the area has also been the location of extensive paramilitary activity and violence in recent years, we think it may be best that the area remain unexplored for the time being. Number 1. Bir Tawil. Typically speaking, while geographical limits may make somewhere hard to reach, even the most remote of locations have been claimed by at least one of the world's governments. However, Bir Tawil stands apart for being the only habitable area on the planet that is not claimed by any nation. You see, Bir Tawil stands on the border of Egypt and Sudan, and due to the contradictory statements of the British government when setting up the borders in 1899 and 1902, there is now a dispute between the two countries in which they are both vying for a piece of land known as the Halaib Triangle. However, they are both not claiming Bir Tawil, as international law mandates that to claim ownership of one would automatically mean that they're renouncing ownership of the other. Therefore, Bir Tawil currently sits as an uninhabited and practically unexplored territory that may be forever in a state of limbo. However, despite its precarious position, there have still been some people out there who have tried to claim Bir Tawil as their own. In particular, these people hope to set up Bir Tawil as a micronation, in which they are the dictator of, and will sometimes even visit in order to plant a flag and assert their authority. Yet due to the fact that not a single one has gotten any type of international recognition, it goes without saying that this is a practice not taken seriously by almost everyone. Watch our nature playlist for more top 15 videos about beautiful nature. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best nature videos.